avoid anything that would truncate this our nascent democracy. You are the politicians, we provide the services. And we want our services to be provided peacefully. That we don't molest, we don't harass, we don't want to be misquoted as doing this or doing that. And that is our appeal to you, so that we have peaceful conduct of the election.
We have already sent invitation letters to the political parties to send their representatives tomorrow at 2 p.m., I believe, at Central Bank to witness the reception of sensitive materials. Our ad hoc staff, the representatives, various security agents from the Honorable Commissioner would direct to cover from the Central Bank, up to the local government headquarters, and eventually up to the racks and polling units. We are ready for that. It's important to note that we are compelled by law to ensure that each candidate is represented at every event. Each party, each candidate is represented. So there are recognized.
Before we append to signature, we say we don't want this to be more like a ceremonial, fulfilling all righteousness, come and sign and go, where security agents will not do their work as expected. The INEC officers supposed to be independent, they will not be independent. And that was why we raised some fundamental issue that we needed to be addressed before we signed the peace accord. One, where will the IDPs or people that are displaced, where will the election will take place? Everybody knows that if you want to manipulate every process, what you will do is where there are insecurity, the result could be written, and then you declare it and ask us to go to court. We are not ready to go to court. We want to insist the right things to be done. IDPs, we have IDPs. Will election material be carried to the IDP? We need to know so that we mobilize our people there to ensure that the right thing is done. In respect of sensitive materials, there are major sensitive materials: the ballot papers, then the result sheet. You cannot give me ballot paper and hold the result sheet. No, we challenge that everything should be given. Returning officer, sometimes and most time in INEC election, returning officer usually come after the election, and sometimes they will disappear and result will be announced. So we insisted that returning officers should go along with the materials. Sincerely speaking, PDP is ready to provide feeding for them all through.
And in fact, we are the first beneficiaries of the peaceful coexistence and peaceful conduct of election. If you can remember how we emerged in 2015. So the APC is highly in compliance with all these peace accord signing. And we will make sure that we have our peaceful campaigning. As you can see, we are going rally for Kaduna, Chukun Kajuru, constituency, Zaria, Basawa. In fact, we are the subscribers of the peaceful conduct of the election, and we will abide by it.
See on your screen, these are excerpts, preparation for the by-elections. We've listened to the stakeholders on the preparation and what has been put on ground to ensure hitch-free by-elections. Well, a couple of states will be having these by-elections today, and we'll be discussing it. We'll be looking at this, as the paper put it, watertight security. And we'll also look at the lesson in this election for INEC as we prepare for Goober elections and then going into 2027. We'll also talk about political parties, especially the ADC, that are looking to make a good showing, a good outing. Will they be able to announce themselves? And for the dominant political parties that you have in states, it's also a litmus test for them, especially Edo State. Will they be using this election to perhaps assert or consolidate? These are questions as we get to meet our desk. Did I say desk? Our guest. Jennifer, do me the honors, please.
All right.
Before I say desk again.
No, I won't let you do that. And our guest is a very reputable academia. He's someone who has been very much interested in communication. He's a communication expert. Very soon we should be giving you a professor. Dr.
He's on
Christopher
the
Okon. Welcome.
Good morning to you, Jennifer.
Good morning.
Good morning,
Ike, we are on top of the desk, so you don't...
It is indeed a desk.
Yes, it's actually a desk.
Yes.
As far as this morning beat is concerned, it's a desk. So I'm happy to be here. Good morning, very esteemed viewers.
Let me fire the first salvo. By-elections taking place today. We're back to election season again. Even this one's by-elections. What are your expectations from these elections, especially from INEC's standpoint?
First, I think that we should be able to commend INEC for putting their house in order to be able to conduct by-elections in the first instance. Why am I commending them? Is because
I know you will do something else afterward.
in the last in the last administration, some constituencies, some senatorial districts did not have senators and House of Representative members and House of Assembly members for over a year, until the tenure of former President Buhari, until he exited. INEC did not conduct elections for those people that lost their members. And I couldn't understand. I became a victim myself because my federal constituency, the Oron, Okobo, Mbo, Udunguko, and Reform Oroko federal constituency, the largest in the country, did not have a representative for over a year. And when you do that, and you are comfortably sitting in the office, and the people are not enjoying representation, and all the things are supposed to flow from that representation, then there's something wrong with the institution. So that's why I started my analysis this morning by commending them. Because those constituencies, as of this morning, will be hopeful that at least in 2 to 3 weeks' time, someone will be able to stand up for them. You know, when you don't have a representation when constitutional amendment is coming up, we don't have a representation when various matters of state are taking place, then your community is locked out of governance, technically speaking. So that's why I started from this commendation, and I hope they hear me, and I hope that they don't repeat what the lacuna that took place in the last administration.
Let's talk about preparedness. INEC is deploying technologies that was used in the last elections for this particular by-elections. Let's talk about these technologies that INEC is deploying. You think they must have, this is where I clear my throat. You think they must have improved on these technologies, tweaked whatever needs to be tweaked, or upgraded these technologies, like it presents them with a litmus test going into the 2027 elections?
I don't think we cannot underestimate the expertise of Nigerians. If it is incapacity, I'm talking about even the police force, the Nigerian police, if it is incapacity, when they are determined to do what they want to do, they will do it.
I don't understand.
I'm talking about the fact that Nigerians who are working in INEC and their capacity to manage technology cannot be doubted. What is in problem is the legal framework to allow the intentment of the technology to work. You recall that President Muhammadu Buhari spent 200 billion or thereabout to acquire beavers.
And some others.
And some other devices to enable us to have a situation room where you can have a process control and track the election from
real time
from the polling booth to the announcement. That particular innovation was saluted by a lot of Nigerians. That brought about motivation to vote. There are two major factors that affect voting. One is the psychology of voting. The next one is the sociology of the vote itself. In terms of psychology, Nigerians before then had apathy. They did not trust on the credibility of elections in Nigeria. But when they heard of beavers, and INEC spent a lot of resources to evangelize the people, motivate them, and enlighten them on the workability and the benefits beavers will bring on the elections.
You're missing IREV as well.
And IREV, at the end of the day, as per the result that was announced and court rulings, he did not show that we've invested on anything. However, while we are still waiting for the amendments to be made to our electoral laws to allow beavers and IREV to be tenable in courts and to be used as sound instrument of judgment, INEC can continue to gather experience in the usage. But for now, because of that court ruling, and there was a Supreme Court ruling for that matter, this continues to be like
Dr. Chris, as it continues to be as an experiment, like you mentioned here, there are still some issues. You mentioned that you commend INEC for putting the house in order. And I want to understand, do you think they have really put the house in order? In the aspect of technology, in the aspect of personalities, the officials, in the aspect of manning the different states. Now, let me also put together the different states. We have 13 states that will be participating in the by-election. And out of those 13 states, 16 constituencies. Now, in the affected states for different constituencies, we have that 2 senatorial districts will be having by-elections, Anambra and Edo states, 5 federal constituencies in Edo, Kaduna, Jigawa, Ogun State, Oyo State, and then 9 constituencies in Adamawa, Kaduna, Kano, Anambra, Kogi, Niger, Taraba, and Zamfara State. Now, these are different states entirely. We're not having a full-fledged election across the country. These are 13 states. You think they have really put the house in order in terms of security? Taraba State, Niger State, Zamfara State, we know how those states have been insecurity issues. Put the house in order in terms of technology, the beavers, the IREV. Put the house in order in terms of the personnel. Arrival on time, we've always had that issue. Arrival for personnel of the INEC officials. Put the house in order in terms of coordination, the PVCs and all. Has INEC really put the house in order?
If INEC cannot put itself in order for 2 senatorial districts, so how will you expect INEC to put itself in order for 109 senatorial districts? I think it's far more easier for INEC. It can be, even though I'm not in INEC, I don't think it will be difficult for INEC to put itself in order for 2 senatorial districts and for 16 constituencies. And I'm hoping that they have learned a lot of lessons. The only challenge they may have is that of in terms of security in the security-prone areas of Taraba and the contiguous states. However, because of the fact that they're able to concentrate in terms of personnel, the by-elections are always easier than the general elections because you can mop resources, both personnel, material, and even financial resources from other territories to, that is why some people have even argued for staggered elections. Many analysts that argue against election holding at the same time in the same place for everyone is that experience has shown that some of these staggered elections perform better than the wholesome election of one day. And as you can see, and you are likely to see, that INEC many times perform better in these staggered elections because they bring so many times even the commissioners up to 5 into one state. Commissioner of police, all of them will be brought into one state. You know, if you bring the entire zone, assuming it was in the south-south, you bring all the commissioner of police in 6 states into one zone with an AIG and a DIG. That is concentration. And that brings focus a little bit. So, but if it was an election that was general, where one commissioner will supervise one state and it trickles down to the unit, you discover that most units don't even have any security personnel. I have participated in election many times in my unit there's not a single,
Security operative.
personnel. So I think to answer your question, Jennifer, experience has shown that INEC performs better in staggered elections than in the general election. The challenge that we will face is in terms of security in those areas that have security lapses. But I'm hoping that they can mop more personnel and concentrate in that territory and ensure that elections do hold. But the question, what you should be bothered about, assuming but not considering that this was a general election, what would they have done when everybody has to answer his father's name?
There are two questions, two issues on the table, but I'll pick one. And then as we progress, we'll talk about the other one. Technologies. One of the biggest problems.
Ask me that.
One of the biggest problems that really greeted the 2023 election, as you've mentioned, the legal issues, the deployment of these technologies and all of that. You think INEC would have sorted that out before going into by-elections, or resort to the ones that will not have legal implication should we have legal fireworks after the elections?
Please, can you come back again?
I said, when we had the 2023 elections, one of the problems that greeted that election was the technologies deployed and the impediment of the legal encumbrances. Now, I am bringing the question to you that you think INEC would have sorted that out before going into the by-elections so as to forestall a recurrence of the legal issues that we had in 2023 that may greet these elections.
No, it's not an INEC problem. The lacuna in the law was not created by INEC. It was created by lawmakers themselves, who sat down and formulated a law, and somebody can accuse them. I'm not the one accusing them, because of the fact that one will be looking at what were they looking at, and they are allowed the lacuna to be to the extent that
they even shot themselves in the foot.
Yes. So what were they looking at? INEC cannot wait for them. You know why? Like I said earlier, I was commending them because these constituents are already waiting for a long time to have someone represent them. So INEC has to proceed to use what is available to be able to get someone into those places so those other constituencies can have a representation. However, that is not a solution to the entire problem. INEC should be able to work with the National Assembly. And Nigerians may not forgive them this time around. If they proceed to do an amendment to the Electoral Act and the Constitution, and they don't cover up those lacunas that were left in the Electoral Act, that has made the technologies almost irrelevant and useless.
That is why I asked that question that I asked earlier. We hear that INEC is currently embarking on certain reforms in the electoral system. I had said, don't you think they should have perfected that going into another elections with the same technologies, with the legal issues that may follow?
I agree with you. That is supposed to have been the case. But they are slow. And the constituencies will not keep waiting. Since we have a law already on ground, notwithstanding the gaps, is that same law that brought everybody that is here, the president, the senators, the governors. With that same lacuna, the law brought all of them on ground. So while depending on a new law, before you now cure a constituency of a lack of representation. That is why they have proceeded to conduct the elections. But that does not resolve the total problem. And I agree with you, Ike, that INEC should be able to work. The reforms of INEC are not always bringing the expectation from Nigerians.
Desirable expectations.
It gives them, it lifts up their hope and dash it to the ground. And that is very sad. That is always very sad.
But what
so these reforms that
identify?
INEC is talking about, I hope that the reforms will be such that when the outcome comes, when the outcome is seen, he would have been able to resolve the fears that most Nigerians have.
What could you identify to be some of the bottlenecks or the major issues that INEC can live up to the promises they make, the assurances and reassurances they give Nigerians? What could be those major issues amounting to those failed promises?
Now, the solution to the problem which has brought lack of faith
in INEC.
In INEC. Is that INEC and Nigeria has the capacity to join other countries of the world to go full electronic in our electoral system. That means that there will be electronic accreditation. Already we have electronic cards, electronic accreditation, electronic voting, and electronic documentation and electronic announcement.
Transmission.
Everything.
E.
Everything will be E. With caveats as to what to do 1, 2, 3, 4 when any of these steps fails, and ensure that nobody uses any of those gaps
to exploit
or defraud the system. That's what INEC must do. But the question is, will the lawmakers have the political will to be able to strengthen this institution once and for all? Will they not go back and begin to look at gaps, either consciously or unconsciously, slipping off duty or oversleeping or overworking on duty, to ensure that there's a gap that will destroy the entire exercise? That's the question I would like to ask.
But those gaps, now, the political will from the National Assembly, is that really the problem? Considering the fact that we couldn't fulfill an efficient, flawless e-system using the Joint Admissions and Matriculation Board. West African Examination Council, they are
CBT,
also considering
precisely.
that. Yeah, the CBT. In fact, the University of Uyo began a CBT exercise for students, but it's been flawed as well. Now, this is a university system. Joint Admissions and Matriculation Board is a national activity. So
mention
you think
WAEC as well. They have
WAEC.
issues.
Now, if those were not possible, effortlessly, efficiently, faultlessly, blameless in somewhat way, would that be possible with the Independent National Electoral Commission?
Okay, now the idea about there's nowhere in the world that you're going to have a blameless situation, even in very civilized, technologically advanced countries. You don't have a blameless situation. But here is what it is taken. You set up a process. And when the process is transparent, when the natural fault comes, everybody will know that that was the fault of no one. That is where the issue comes from. Not that there could never be a fault, okay? But when the fault comes, the process can be audited. That is where the issue is in ensuring that when you audit the process, no human angle was brought into it. Because it is technology, and that is science. Science is supposed to be systematic, and it's supposed to be objective, and it's supposed to be predictable. I'm using 3 key scientific terms now: systematic, objective, and predictable. When a system is not predictable, it's not scientific. What it means is that a human variable, which is emotions like tribe, religion, negligence, irresponsibility, has come in. And where you see those systems fail, if it is normal system failure, it is okay. Because when you audit it, you will not see any human angle inside it. But once you see a human angle inside it, where a tribe is going to be brought in by an operator,
or
where religion or ethnicity is going to be involved, then that's the human angle. And science will fail. Allow science to run independently. Even when it fails, it can be evaluated to know what caused the failure.
And improved upon.
And everybody will accept.
Okay.
So, all those elements and examples you set, sometimes in our system, we don't prepare for our processes. We just introduce something. If you want, for instance, to start a technology-based structure, you must look at your framework. you must look at your capacity. Can it carry it? So, for instance, the Nigerian situation as per Beavers was completely a human angle.
Was it?
It appears that it was a human angle because they have not published the auditing of the process to identify who were involved and which systems was involved. And that is why people will suspect that it was a human angle. If it were machine fault, then you have to publish the auditing processes and mention categorically clear where those glitches were and who were involved.
Perhaps the company.
They were not done. So here is the gap that has to be looked at now. For going forward, I'm proposing that we should go full electronic to the end. And two, that will, a lot of people's hope were dampened. They were completely frustrated. And you see the number of voters that went out that time, higher than ever in the history of this country. So if we want to get back the hope of the people on the electoral process, then INEC must ensure that the laws are worked on to ensure that there is no gap.
Let us talk about the electronic process. I know that in the Nigerian Bar Association elections, everything is electronic. Wherever you are in their elections, you can vote from wherever you are, and everything is done real time. Even university elections and electing the student union president, everything is electronic.
My
So why is it difficult?
My local government student union, they elect their executive through electronic means.
So why is it difficult for us to have electronic elections, even with this small by-elections before we go into the full-blown ones in 27? You think it's sheer will or technological impediment?
It's not technological impediment. It's will. We are afraid of outcomes.
Who's afraid?
I don't know. We have to investigate that.
Who's afraid of what outcome?
We are afraid of outcome. I mean, for God's sake, why should you be afraid? And I can assure you, we have discussed this severally in other platforms. Until we get the quality of people in that are right, then our outcome will not be different. We normally say it, that the voice of the people is the voice of God.
Vox populi, vox paribus.
Yes. And when the voice of the people are not the voice of the people, then it cannot be the voice of God. And in summary, that is where you have seen all our problems. What it means is that significantly, majority of the people that we have found in many places were not the voices of the people. And so you cannot see the work of God. And it looks very funny, but that's the truth. So if we really need, if we want a viral system, if we want a leadership that can be responsible to the people, then I will expect Mr. President, as a Democrat that he is. It's so unfortunate that the former president could not do it to our expectation. But the ball is in his court now. And he's a Democrat. He's a fighter for freedom. He has been involved in pro-democracy activities. It will go down in history for him. And some people will be afraid. What if that makes me lose an election? What does it matter if you leave behind? What is the most important? To leave behind a legacy of a greater future for your children and great-grandchildren than to be a president at the end that you live over.
But Jennifer mentioned something. If we have JAM CBT, YX CBT, we're having issues. Are we ready to go full electronic with our processes, electoral processes, if we're still having glitches with exams? And
just the exams does not also completely tell us how this can be fulfilled. We also look at cases of manipulation. We know of situations where, in fact, even with the school setup we talked about, where students manipulate results. And here we are looking at politicians who are willing to do everything possible to grab the seat of power. don't you think that there is a possibility of them manipulating elections to be in their favor?
Are we ready?
Well, I think that you have even answered the question. When we have elders manipulating elections, those elders have students and have children in their home. So they have already they have already prepared their children in advance. So the children start experimenting what their parents have done from the school. You know, this is the value system that is dangerous. I mean, it's not a laughing matter, but that is very serious. Okay, so but I think that the best situation, like the lepers in the Bible, is to go forward. At this point in time, what are the options? The options is to either reverse back to totally manual.
The world has gone beyond that. Nobody's doing manual anymore.
That is the issue. So we cannot get back to that manual condition.
Option A4.
Instead of that, we have to go forward.
We perish, we perish. Let's go forward.
Yes, let's go forward with determination, with faith, with courage to be able to do the right thing. And what are the right things? That those who are involved in lawmaking, that those who are involved in the crafting, because even the crafters of those rules, of those laws themselves can be very mischievous. You know, there's a way somebody writes, very flowery, that you don't even understand the implications until you go to the court. So the person has deliberately crafted the law and created a lacuna in advance
to exploit.
For those who paid him or he paid himself to be exploited in the courts.
Now, let's leave that.
So even those people that crafted that law that failed in the court, some of them should be examined. Because they may have deliberately may have done most of the.
Well, let's leave that. We do hope that INEC will, you know, perhaps look at these issues going forward. I'd hope that after the 2023
it's a challenge on INEC.
Yes, after the 2023, because of course there's an image
and
issue
the lawmakers, and the president, because truth be told, God bless President Buhari wherever he is, but he left behind a punctuated electoral system. Punctuated in the sense that so much hope was on him to deliver. So immediately the court ruled that Beavers and IREF were not supposed to be dependent in totality. They were not relevant documents in that judgment. It killed that 200 billion naira and other money that was spent. So what is his legacy in the electoral system as expected? That's the point I'm trying to make. So the president should not go into that kind of legacy also. I'm really expecting, and I'll beg him to really ensure he doesn't have any, apart from INEC, the president has no role. You know, INEC is the one representing the president because INEC is in the executive. But he should use the instrumentality of the party, which is in the majority, in the National Assembly, to ensure that these loopholes are sealed. Because the box, at the end of it, he will assent to it, and he will be held responsible.
Okay, let's pick some specific states. I'd like to begin from Anambra. And we know the peculiarity in Anambra. While so many states might be galvanizing around the ruling All Progressives Congress and the PDP in their past glory, I don't know if I should say that. Well, the Anambra state has always been known for APGA, and over the years we've seen they've held a strong footing in Anambra state, and this time around the by-election might seem a bit shaky, considering the fact that Soludo has declared his support for President Tinubu, and still with the APGA. And then with the by-election, you think that there might be some form of bromance that will see a little bit of selling off of APGA, or somewhat way retaining the spot for APGA?
Trade-off.
Trade-off.
Take some, give me some.
Now, by the way, the senatorial seat actually belonged to Labour Party issue.
Yes.
So there's a little bit of tension there in the Anambra State because, like you have rightly mentioned, Soludo is an ally of the president, but Soludo will not trade off the Central District. However, it has a contention. The contention there is the ADC candidate, whereas the Labour Party has been, factionalized. Because of that, Labour Party cannot put forward a candidate for that election that would have wrestled that power directly with Soludo. And so Labour Party is now coming behind ADC. So the ADC candidate is actually flying the sentiment of the Labour Party in Anambra State. So the elections is between actually the ABGA candidates, the ADC candidates, and the APC candidates. It's very difficult to begin to predict what the outcome will be. But under normal circumstances, if Labour Party were to be strong, if Labour Party did not have any challenge in their national structures, Labour Party would have been the party to beat as far as that Central District is concerned.
Now, let's talk about the ADC, which is fast becoming a loud opposition, I'd like to call them, that coalition. They'll be looking forward to make a statement with these by-elections as they come into these by-elections. In Anambra being a case study, you think this presents the ADC an opportunity to announce itself, perhaps convince Nigerians that that clout they seem to have at the moment can be materialized through gaining seats?
Yeah, the ADC has an opportunity to make that statement, but it depends on how they are organized. One of the major things that will be affecting ADC is the fact that if most of the leaders of the ADC have pecuniary interests, they have personal interests, some presidential ambitions, some other ambitions. So how they negotiate those ambitions and allow it to work for common good for the party is where the problem lies.
I need to put on record, for the benefit of our viewer and for the benefit of this conversation, I hope we are aware that there is a leadership crisis in the ADC. Legitimacy of the leadership as we speak, which is being challenged by someone like Dumebi and some other persons who have come out to say that the current structure, the current leadership of the ADC now is illegal.
Well, those are personal.
You think it's not going to affect their candidate?
Those are personal statements. Why the Labour Party?
So who signed? Who signed for their candidate?
When INEC recognizes a party, of course, and recognizes those signatories, that stands for the moment.
For the moment.
Yes. What can alternate or can change that narrative is a court ruling. What Labour Party is having problem is that they are having problem with the interpretation of the ruling of the courts. And all the parties are interpreting the judgment to the extent of how it favors them. So it sets them apart. Now, we are waiting for rulings on ADC. So to that effect, it will not affect ADC for now. So the point remains that Labour Party, ABGA, ADC, and APC.
I wonder why you put an ADC before an APC.
Well, because of the fact that there is a logic there. If Governor Soludo
he has an existing bromance
will not trade
with an APC government.
Yes, that romance can even give him an advantage in terms of the ABGA candidate. Because that romance can even make APC to trade off that central seat to him. So that romance can be advantageous to the governor than to the president as far as the Central District seat is concerned. Because the president will prefer the presidency than to go to hold on to a Senate district, a Central District, and forfeit the entire state. So what will the president want? What will he gain? The president wants to be a president. And here is only one Central District. And this man is your ally. The president can prefer to forego that Central District and retain the support of Soludo So that's why I'm trying to explain. That's why I'm putting the APC last.
Okay, well, that's one state now. Let's also look at Edo, still talking about strongholds and strong footings. We know Edo State has, so for a very long time, has been controlled by the People's Democratic Party. And the All Progressives Congress recently came in with the election of Monday Okon as the governor. And within that short period of time, you think Okon has been able to build a strong, formidable force of the All Progressives Congress in Edo, enough to be able to give a run for money for other political parties who might show up for the by-election today?
Okay, now the Edo State's political climate is very dicey because you have a very active youth population in Edo State, and the youthful population in Edo State seems to be rooting for a different agenda completely. Even children in Edo State vote differently from their parents. The case study is the former governor of Edo State, where he said the wife and the children are rooting for people outside his political party. So the climate in Edo State is a little bit different and unpredictable. It is this election that will make us to be able to predict to the extent how the governor has been able to grab the state and ensure that he's able to reinforce his authority through the party in the state. But one factor that is to his disadvantage is the way the former governors left. The former governor did not leave very strong. He left with patches on his back. And by patches, I mean that he left with having conflict with with some of his allies. And, you know, that is always a major crack. When you leave power, and at the end of the day, so many people that were with you, disagree with you, have problem with you, it might be difficult because he is the one that is supposed to have been
spearheading the opposition.
Spearheaded PDP to this election. But when he's not strong, it will give the APC an advantage. Now, the other party that is supposed to have given the APC a good fight is the Labour Party in Edo State.
Embroiled in crisis.
This conflict that they are in is likely going to affect them. Because one of the things that may happen there is apathy. So you will not see people coming out for the elections because most of the youths are not happy. They are not excited about what has happened. So they just stay back in their home and be waiting for the presidential election.
If your analysis is anything to go by, you're saying this is Uhuru for Okon.
I'm not saying that it is Uhuru. I'm saying that Uhuru, that Okon.
You were going to call Uhuru Kenyatta.
Yes. I'm saying that Okon may have some level of advantage because of the disadvantage created by his predecessor through the opposition, and the fact that the Labour Party that is supposed to have given him a fight is not also that organized. If the youth are to come out for this election, then Okon will be in trouble. And even the former governor will be in trouble. But if the youth do not come out for this election, then Okon has advantage over the PDP.
Which is most likely to play out? The issue of apathy?
It's the apathy that is likely going to play out.
Why?
Because of the fact that the majority of the voters, which are the youths, may not be very excited.
What is making them unhappy?
Their unhappiness is the fact that INEC is yet to get back to that level to convince the youths.
Is it about INEC or the governor, who is a governor performing right now? If you go to Edo State, the governor has earned a name as turning Edo State into a construction site. The governor has put in certain initiatives on ground to try and get the confidence of the people. Isn't that convincing enough to make those people who you say are unhappy to come out and vote?
No, that may not, whatever the governor has done now, may just be able to do reinforcement. And you know, reinforcement are on people who are already believing on the system. Okay? But to convince takes a whole lot of things. It's not about groundbreaking. Groundbreaking do not convince people.
Well, the people are
Now,
yearning for governance, and it's providing
groundbreaking can only do reinforcement. But groundbreaking, to be able to change somebody's idea and somebody's belief system, then you need to do a lot beyond groundbreaking. So time, it will take him time to be able to push many people across the line. But for now, it will be so sure that everyone that was with him are still with him. And if they're in the majority and there's apathy, he can take the day.
I see.
Well,
Jennifer.
There's something I'd like to bring up from The Nation when we're analyzing the papers. There's something that caught my attention, and it's from The Nation newspaper. It says there, El Rufai, PDP, take on Uba Sani, and it didn't specifically mention a party attached to El Rufai. It says El Rufai, PDP, take on Uba Sani.
I can help you.
Oh.
For El-Rufai, you're either talking about the SDP or you're talking about ADC. So whichever one he stands for.
Indeed. So whichever one he stands for, you think El Rufai still had such powers to push in or front someone for the by-election today?
How much influence, actually?
How much influence?
You may not be able to totally wipe out the influence of El Rufai, notwithstanding his national coloration. You know, El Rufai may have problem in terms of national outlook, but in terms of his base, his local base, I mean, his state constituency, his local government area, his federal constituency, it might be very difficult to really sweep El Rufai away from those bases. And it's only this election that will prove to what extent he's still in charge or he has lost out. So what you are saying is that in those climbs, some of those climbs, the variable that go for election in some of those climbs is religion and some level of ethnicity. They are still part of our body politic. It's very difficult to take away religion and ethnicity from our from the voter psychology. So, and when those two variables come to play, even the sense of reasoning will fly, and that is what.
Well, let us look at it this way. Currently, the former governor is not exactly in the best of times with the incumbent, Uba Sani, and El-Rufai hasn't exactly...
Is it thankfully?
Well,
Can somebody say thankfully?
Well, I don't know. And El-Rufai is not exactly having the best of times because, of course, forgive me to use the term, there's political uncertainty greeting him because you cannot really say if he's with the SDP or with the coalition ADC. So that in itself is a baggage that, of course, is to his disadvantage. Now, you have an Uba Sani who also, as I did talk about Okpebolo, seems to be doing something different from what his predecessor did. He's providing governance in Kaduna State. There hasn't, to the best of my knowledge, been something disadvantageous about the governor. Don't you think he will be consolidating on the gains to the disadvantage of either SDP or ADC?
That you made a very serious and valid point there. The Kaduna scenario is different from Edo State scenario. Don't forget, Uba Sani has been there for some time, over 2 years. Okay, so he has moved beyond enforcement to change of choice. From his attitude, Uba Sani comes across as a liberal person. He's liberal in religion, liberal in terms of attitude towards ethnicity. Uba Sani come across as a nationalist. And so to that extent, he gets followership across board, across his ecosystem. So he gets support from Muslims, he gets support from Christians, he gets support from settlers, he gets support from aborigines because of his attitude, and consistently for over 2 years. So that is why Uba Sani has been able to fundamentally encroach into the territory and the control board of El-Rufai. But the argument I'm making is that he may not be able to do so at the close domicile of El-Rufai. He doesn't even need it. So if El-Rufai, if he loses one federal constituency to El-Rufai, that does not change the strength of Uba Sani. That is why I made the point that we cannot throw totally El-Rufai away in terms of influence in a small territory. But I want to agree with you that Obasani has significantly done well in terms of his attitude, his comportment toward all the strata of the people that he's supposed to be superintending upon. So the scenario in Canada is significantly different.
You think it's going to favor the APC? The opposition coalition, SDP, you name it, they'll be looking to put up a showing.
It will significantly favor APC in Kaduna State. It will. I don't know how many consensus for elections are built for there, but if it is in terms of general elections, Kaduna State will be significantly.
But let's also put on record that even before El-Rufai left the APC, he was in the APC. There hasn't exactly been another political party. The only thing that is to the credit of El-Rufai was how he conducted the local government elections, which allowed some other political parties also have some take. But then APC holds sway in Kaduna, and you're saying most likely it will go the way of the APC.
Yes, it's most likely will go the way of APC.
Okay, let's look at Oyo State and
Seyi Makinde, PDP.
Makinde, PDP, and we know the APC is on the national scene, and Seyi Makinde hasn't been very outright about his stance from the national scene. And with the by-election there, what do you suspect would possibly pan out when it comes to show of strength? The ADC is not a very strong hold in Oyo State as we speak. The PDP is not very stable nationally, and will that have some form of impact in the election today? The All Progressives Congress, they're still making their way through as well in Oyo State as we speak. And just your input on...
Okay, Oyo State scenario is a totally different scenario. And you cannot underestimate Seyi. Seyi is one politician that talk less. I think among all the entire political gladiators in the entire country,
you can barely determine.
You can barely hear Seyi, but it's very impactful. If you see the way Seyi won that second term election, some people had underestimated him, but by the influence that President Tinubu was bringing to the table, that he would sweep him away. But I'm sure that he even used that influence to retain himself and negotiated so many things out. The same thing applies to Anambra State, would apply there. If Seyi pans to or present himself as an ally of Mr. President, and Mr. President will be looking forward to control Oyo State. So it's either you negotiate with Seyi and get Oyo State eventually, or you storm Seyi and you lose Oyo State.
Well, something is important to put on the table. Seyi Makinde himself has not hid his intention to vie for the most coveted seat. I hope you are aware.
The intentions do not, the intention is by self-strategy. When somebody says I want to contest an election, when he sees an incumbent in office, two things are involved. One is to elect the person that is the current person sitting, that he himself is eyeing that office. So
is it two for negotiation?
It can be two. You have taken off my mouth. It can also be a tool for negotiation. So what would the president be looking for? Looking for a contender in his base, or looking for a give and take situation and retain his base? So those are the cards that are on the table.
So you think,
as I sit, I cannot predict the outcome.
It's very dicey.
Yes,
very dicey.
I cannot predict the outcome of that election, and because I cannot underestimate the sagacity
of the governor.
Because he does not talk. And those who do not talk much are very smart.
Fear them.
So, and sometimes when you are too vulgar, you even talk about your strategy. So I don't want to underestimate Seyi. At the same time, I'm not saying that APC is not making a good encroachment into Oyo State. But I will resist the temptation to predict clearly what is going to happen in Oyo State.
Well, it's even good. I mean, it saves you the opportunity of we even calling you the lucky octopus. By the way, the octopus is dead, and the Premier League resumes. It would have been good to have the octopus predict matches. Jennifer.
Indeed, and
I don't want to be that kind of octopus.
well, still, let's look at the generality of the election. We've looked at some of the states, and some tweets are already pouring in concerning the holding of election. I'm still monitoring some of the locations.
Have you mentioned all the states?
Not all the states in contention. Well, we've mentioned a few. Well, maybe we can still
Let's touch on one more.
One more state.
I like his analysis, though. I'd like to hear what he has to say about the last one.
Zamfara
trying
State.
to convert me to another.
Zamfara State, yes. And security is a major concern in Zamfara State.
I was even going to say not just security, because that same security situation plays out in Anambra State.
Yes.
Let's not forget what's going on in Anambra. So, and of course, Zamfara has been in the news. Recently, we heard of Turji surrendering his arms, the Turji, the kidnapped kingpin. We do not know if the security situation in Zamfara is improving to allow by-elections without, security hitches.
You see, the issue about securities for election, we have always had elections in very security-prone areas. Is there any area that votes were not returned in those security areas, even places that were controlled by Boko Haram? These are the issues, Ike. Elections were held. I'm telling you, even in areas that were controlled by Boko Haram, when election was going on, the result came. So it's a function of, but this one gives the security operatives a greater opportunity to control whatever it is there, because they are going to move security. They know exactly from their security report, from the intelligence that I've gathered, they exactly know where to move people into. So if they move like 3,000 people into a small territory to secure an election, nobody can move in that place. So it's something that can be done. And like I told you earlier, our officials have capacity. The challenge we have is that we have intervening variables in those capacities. And they are always distorted by tribe, religion, and corruption. These are the three demons. I like to repeat it almost every time. In terms of capacity, Nigerians have determination. And when they want to do something, they'll do it. Hardly would we have any plan that will not carry it out. But if it fails, investigate. Any of those variables have stopped it.
I see. Jennifer.
Well, I don't know, Ike, if you still want me to pick another location.
No. Let's do reactions now.
Good. Well, now I'm going to pick some of the major discussions across the Independent National Electoral Commission and their ability to get into some of these areas and conduct the by-election today. Now, one of the major discussion has been on Nigeria holding a near civilized election in the country. We had asked the newspaper reviewer earlier today about the possibility of a near civilized election. No one is snatching ballot boxes. And it also draws in the National Orientation Agency, the messages, education policy on electoral behavior. We even brought in issues about the ambassadorial aspect of the Kwam 1 incident. And it talks more about education of the people on electoral behavior. You think so far, in preparation for this by-election, there has been enough education done for the people to understand behavioral principles for elections?
They could never have, there is no way we will ever have enough education done on electoral behavior, especially when other systems have failed. That's why I'm saying that I made a fundamental point. Why didn't INEC wait? And I said they could not wait. But if they waited, it would have been better. But the constituencies that are vacant cannot wait because of the fact that that would be injustice. Okay? So, we need to continue education. And in terms of the quality of the elections, it's not on the people. It's on the framework now. the people seems to be prepared to vote by conviction or by anything that leads them to vote. But what is going to be the essence of voting when what you voted does not count? So what is going to ensure, what is going to ensue is apathy, except the president is deliberate through INEC, and lawmakers are able to seal the loopholes of the electoral law and the constitution as it relates to election. There's nothing anybody can do about it. Now, the poor leadership recruitment process will give birth to poor leaders. There are no, you see, a goat cannot give birth to a lion. And if that equation is anything to go by, a near faultless election is an election that has a framework with high credibility quotient. And what is high credibility quotient? Is that the data so generated by the election should be reliable. And I made the point that if the outcome is not predictable, it's not systematic, and it's not objective, then the data is faulty. And when the data is faulty, two things can help. One is either the product of that faulty process owns up, like Yaradua did, that indeed what brought me on board was not faultless, and begin a genuine process to review the process. But if we continue in the trajectory of covering up one sin to perpetrate another, then we're in for a vicious show as far as electoral behavior is concerned. So I'm not a prophet of doom, but okay, I can prophesy in advance.
Yeah,
that if the loopholes of the Electoral Act is not sealed, the outcome of the election, even in 2027, will still be faulty.
All right, as we look to conclude this conversation, we've discussed all the variables, security, INEC.
And of course, you know that the parties have their own problems.
Of course.
The party is behaving in a way that they can just bring a goat, wear that goat a uniform, put glasses on it and call it a name and stand for election. That's the way the parties are behaving. And the constitution has nothing to help an average candidate. Nothing.
Which constitution? Party constitution, the constitution.
The Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria cannot help you. Somebody won an election. The party says no, it cannot be you. It is this one that won. It compares who they wanted on the ballot. And the people are helpless. They don't have a choice.
Okay, is this you advocating for individual candidates?
Yes, there should be a window. We cannot continue to run this kind of democracy because INEC will not be able to play magic. Immediately the parties submit their candidates. If they brought dog, goats, lions, INEC has no power as it stands in our law. So one of those people will emerge. But if we had a scenario that this candidate won and you took the ticket from him, and he follows the procedure and files and becomes an independent candidate, and the candidate is popular, and the people moves and vote for the popular candidate, next time when election comes, the parties will begin to follow their rules. So as we sit now in this country, the electorates are helpless because whoever the party brings, one of them will become the winner, and INEC cannot help either.
Well, I would tend to differ for a bit there, and the reason is because your analysis will be casting so much aspersion on the process. But I would think that
what is the aspersion?
Well, hold on, Doc.
No, I want you to tell me where I am wrong.
Hold on, Doc. What I will be looking at politicians. I'll be looking at politicians, people who are vying for office, having one, good credentials in terms of impact, Who are the people coming to represent us? How much do people they intend to represent know them? And then secondly, how well are they reaching out to the electorates?
You are talking as if you are sitting down in the studio.
No, but I'm telling you the truth.
You are talking.
We can't,
No,
Dr. Chris,
what you are saying is untruth.
Dr. Chris, we cannot continue to fault the process
what you are saying is not correct.
when we are not even giving the process the opportunity to vindicate itself.
What you are saying is
are
not
we
correct.
invariably saying that every single election has been faulty?
I did not say so. You are saying so. But let me say what I said, because you are saying a different thing. I am saying that in a system where the electorate have no choice to make.
And who says the electorate don't have a choice?
They don't have a choice.
They do have a choice.
Except the one through the party.
They do have a choice.
No, they don't.
Electorates have had a choice.
No, let me tell you.
We have seen votes count. We've seen people emerge through
you.
votes from the electorate.
They don't have a choice.
I disagree.
No.
They do have a
now,
choice.
Are you listening? The parties have made their choices. And the law says that it's the party that determines their candidate. Not anybody. Not INEC. Not even a sitting president. Not the House of Rep member or the House of Representatives. It's the party that determines.
But people belong to parties.
I'm making the argument. Now, where parties have decided not to follow their rules, and the people inside the party have no choice, and the electorate have no choice, you have shut down that system. And I'm making the point that there should be provision in the amended constitution as it's going. And civil societies have canvassed for it, that there should be room for independent candidates.
Let's start with that.
So that
room
the
for
parties
independent
the
candidates.
parties can learn.
All right.
When the parties learn and there is competition,
Dr. Chris,
the best will emerge.
Thank you. The best will emerge.
Are you
And we'll
trying
be
to
looking
close
forward.
the program?
And we'll be looking forward to the best.
You have not allowed me to convince
I'm not convinced.
You'd
You're not
convince
convinced?
him.
But then we're done with the conversation.
Okay.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Christopher Okon. We appreciate
Thank you,
your
Dr.
time.
Chris.
Thank
It
you
was a
very
very engaging conversation.
Thank you very much,
again.
Jennifer.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ike, and thank you, esteemed viewers, for a very wonderful rainy season.
Oh, indeed.
And you have also increased the temperature here. In this room.
Indeed.